G'day folks, Wren here, and it is time for some more curating my shelves for ultimate riz. Okay, so we're getting into the hard stuff now with this curation process. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I have started doing a series on my channel called something like Curating My Shelves. It's kind of combining a bookshelf organization with an unhaul, but trying not to think of it as an unhaul. So it's basically just Marie Kondoing my shelves, taking everything off of my shelves, only putting back what I'm really interested in, what I know I want to read, things that just fit my reading taste as of right now. This could potentially be episode 4. I have already done my sci-fi comic non-fiction shelf. I've done my contemporary and classics shelf. I've done my paranormal and fantasy shelves. So now we're moving on to slightly harder things, which is my horror shelf and my thriller shelf. I have been kind of slowly working my way up to the more difficult bookshelves. So I started easy with the sci-fi comics and non-fiction, and then I've just been increasing the level of difficulty until the very end, which will obviously be my queer shelf, because that's going to be hard. But before we get to the queer shelves, we need the horror and thriller shelves. So basically, I've kind of discovered that my reading taste definitely leans more towards horror than anything else. I haven't read too many thrillers, but I want to, and I really like when they're like actually thrilling. Just if you want to see me do this to the rest of my shelves, I will leave the link to the playlist down below. Go watch me stress out about books. I mean, that's what we're here for, isn't it? See me just like slowly losing my mind? Let's just start pulling books off. And knickknacks. I have the most knickknacks on these two shelves.
I got the cash in the bag, stadium packed. Born a rock star in this life, gon' live it up on the attack. Baby, I'm bad, I just wanna get caught up in this life. I'm crazy, I'm mad, doing no cap. Only God wants you, better go live it up. Cash in the bag, stadium packed. Baby, I'm bad, yeah. Baby, I'm bad.
I just wanna stay bad, stay mad. Chip on my shoulder cause they treat me like an outcast. I ain't gonna take that, stay back. I'll be swinging hard till the hits come in all caps. I ain't gonna lay back, pray that someone's gonna help me. Ain't nobody like that. I ain't gonna wait, that's all fact. Give me one shot and I'll never get the throne back. I'm sick of being cautious, I'ma go cause some pain, can't stop this. I'ma steal everybody's lane, call it shoplift. Sick of hearing everyone complain when they thoughtless. Taste the pain, it's like candy canes. It makes me go change into a better frame, into a better name. Society's insane, we all live for fame, yeah.
Cash in the bag, stadium packed. Born a rock star in this life, gon' live it up on the attack. Baby, I'm bad, I just wanna get caught up in this life. I'm crazy, I'm mad, do it no cap. Only God wants you, better go live it up. Cash in the bag, stadium packed. Baby, I'm bad, baby, I'm bad. I got the cash in the bag, stadium packed. Born a rock star in this life, gon' live it up on the attack. Baby, I'm bad, I just wanna get caught up in this life. I'm crazy, I'm mad.
Empty bookshelf. Dusty empty bookshelf. So my entire bed is full of books. Let me show you. All of that. Don't know why I keep subjecting myself to this video series. Now I gotta go through them and find books I definitely want to read. Okay, yeah, this was definitely way more difficult than I really thought it would be. Like, I'm struggling to find ones that, like, I know I want to read. Okay, but I do have a few that I think are definites. So first up we have I Am Not a Serial Killer by Dan Wells. This just sounds interesting because it's like, you know, there's this kid that's 15, he's a mortician and a sociopath, not a serial killer, so he's trying not to kill people, and that just sounds fun. Then I have The Whisper Man by Alex North. There's just something about the fact that a serial killer whispers to people before killing them. It just sounds interesting. Then there's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. I know this has a low rating, and I know it's not the best thriller ever, but I'm just intrigued about what a written slasher would be like. Then I have The Chalk Man by CJ Tudor. Again, just the whole chalk figures showing up everywhere, that just sounds cool. Then we have Hell House by Richard Matheson. Haunted house stories I always love, and I've heard this is pretty high up on the horror lists. Then I have Lost Boy by Christina Henry. If you've seen my other curating videos, you'll know that I love Peter Pan retellings. And this is a horror version where like Peter is as messed up as you didn't realize he was as a kid. Then we have The Flesh Market by Richard Wright. This is a historical horror, but it was something like, oh, how like scientists can get cadavers and they pay money for it. And someone was like, you know where you can get cadavers? You can just make them. So we go on a murder spree. So then we have Devolution by Max Brooks. I love Bigfoot, and I know this is like a horror about Bigfoot, but I mean, give me all the Bigfoot stories. If anyone knows of any other Bigfoot stories, let me know. And then we have The Island by Adrian McKinty. I read The Chain. I loved it. I had such a great time, and The Island sounds like my kind of thing because it's, you know, people stuck on an island, things happening. That sounds fun to me. I could do another stack of BookTube made me do it. Okay, so I've just been through all of the books that like BookTube made me buy, and like I have 2 stacks this high. But what I'm going to start with is my little King pile. So I have Dreamcatcher by Stephen King. This still sounds interesting, so I'm going to keep it. I'm going to try and not give super long explanations of all of these. I have It, and this is my brother's original copy, so it's so tattered. I wouldn't read this edition because it's fragile. This was published in '89. Yeah, I wouldn't read this edition, but I still want to keep it just because, I don't know, it was my brother's. Then I have Pet Cemetery. This does sound interesting with it being about animals. And then not Stephen King, but Stephen King's son. This is Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. Something about this just sounds interesting, like you can buy a ghost. That sounds cool. So I'm keeping all of those. Now we'll go with the other books that I'm keeping. So I have The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie. This was very much influenced by Meg from Meg with Books. I'm not a huge Christie fan, but this one I will give it a go because just like someone killing someone in the order of the alphabet, that sounds fun. Then I have The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. I like that this is short, but this also just sounds interesting. There's something about a psychic. I don't know, psychic and ghosts, that's always my vibe. Then we have The Girl in 6E by A.R. Tor. This just sounds fascinating. A girl that hasn't left her house in years, and she was not leaving her house because like she's a serial killer. She wanted to not be a serial killer, so she stayed at home. Now she has to leave her house to help solve another murder. Sounds interesting. I heard about this on Katie Coulson's channel, which most of these are from Katie Coulson's channel because she's a queen. And I've Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I just want to know what the hype is about this. It's kind of classified as one of those like original thrillers, so I want to give it a go. Then I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. Again, heard about this from Katie Coulson. It says sometimes a thought is closer to truth, to reality, than an action. You can say anything, you can do anything, but you can't fake a thought. That sounds intriguing. Then The End Games by T. Michael Martin. Heard about this from Gabby Reads. It's like there's the end of the world and there are creatures called the Bellows that are kind of like zombies in a way because they want flesh. And there's someone called the Game Master that is leading these 2 brothers through the world. Sounds messed up. Then I have The Maid by Nita Prose. Heard about this from a lot of channels. This, I know this is definitely more mystery than thriller. Yeah, and they're like a heartwarming whodunit. You know, it wouldn't sound like my thing, but something about the fact that this is set in a hotel and our main character is a maid, something about that just really intrigues me. A maid is someone that you overlook, but a maid doesn't overlook you. Then I have Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This just could be interesting because, you know, someone is an apartment sitter where people are going missing and potential ghost story attached to it. I don't know, but I could definitely see myself reading this. Then I have Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Marina Garcia. I was always kind of on the fence about this book, and then Meredith from Reading with Merv recently read this and she loved it. So I'm keen to give it a go. This woman going to help her sister who thinks her husband is poisoning her. Sounds interesting. And then I have The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. Again, heard about this from Katie Colson. I have no idea what this is about. Cannot even describe to you what is happening. But something about it intrigues me. And I have no idea what it's about, but it sounds interesting. Okay, so those are all of the ones I'm actually keeping. Now we'll go to my maybes, which I had so many maybes. So I have The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. Everyone seems to really enjoy this one, and I don't know if I will, because it's all about lying. I'm never really entertained by books that are heavily set around lying. But then again, like, it is set at a camp, so that could be interesting. I don't know. It's only the camp thing that makes me want to read it, but everything else in the synopsis is not making me want to read it. It's only the camp thing. So please, if you've read it, let me know, do you think I'd enjoy it? Then I have The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. Everyone's obsessed with this. I don't know if I would be. I'm not sure I'm really into dark academia. Like, I don't see myself falling in love with this. But a part of it sounds kind of interesting. Again, if you've read it, let me know. Then I have The Night Swim by Megan Golding. This sounded interesting, but like, I love the podcast element, that sounds fun. But I didn't realize that this was focusing on a sexual assault, and that's a huge trigger for me. So if you've read it, can you tell me if the sexual assault content is heavily present, or if it is kind of triggering? I don't know how to describe it in a way that would be like, tell me if I'll get triggered, but I don't know. Like, I want to read it, but I don't want to be triggered, you know? Then I have Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Sutanto. I was really keen to read this. I thought it'd be so much fun, and then I read the first chapter for my try chapter tag a while ago, and I was bored. And then I did give this to my mum to see if she wanted to read it, and she DNF'd it. So I don't know. Then I See You by Claire McIntosh. Heard about this from Leanne from Literary Diversions. I don't know if this actually sounds particularly interesting, or like my kind of thriller. Then I have 2 editions of The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I think I want to love this, but I'm not sure if I would. So can someone tell me if there is a Shakespearean thing to this? Then I have Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. Again, heard about it from Katie Colson, because this is one of her favourite books. And I don't know if I'm interested in like family thrillers. What are they called? Domestic. I don't know if I care about domestic thrillers. So I don't know. Then this book was also on this shelf, but it's not a thriller or a horror. It's The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I want to like this. It sounds like it would be kind of interesting. It's just like someone telling a story. I don't know, like, is this really like high fantasy? Because I don't usually gel with high fantasy. And then out of all of the BookTube hyped books, I'm only officially getting rid of 2. But I have Carrie by Stephen King. I only picked this up because this was the shortest Stephen King I could find, because Stephen King does kind of intimidate me. I don't think I actually care about reading this. Like, I get the gist. There's a messed up teenager who can move things with her mind. Someone pours a bucket of blood on her at prom, and she's humiliated, so I think she goes on a rampage. I don't really care. And then I have Battle Royale by Koshin Takami. I want to enjoy this because, like, it's meant to be, you know, really messed up and just kids fighting. It's the kids fighting that I don't care about. Like, pitting people against each other, I don't really care. And like, I know it says like Battle Royale is a Lord of the Flies for the 21st century. I liked Lord of the Flies, but it wasn't like they were specifically these 2 groups of kids must fight each other. It just kind of naturally happened. Whereas this, it's like they are pitted against each other until there's like, you know, the goal is to have one person less standing. I don't think I care about that. So I'm just gonna let it go, because I don't think I'm ever gonna read it. Okay, so I've read through the rest of my horror and thriller shelf, and I'm keeping most of them. It feels like I should want to get rid of more books, so then it feels like a failure when I haven't got rid of many. But I need to keep reminding myself it's not about getting rid of books, it's about making sure I want to read what is on my shelves. Okay, so the one book that I'm getting rid of is The Dante Club by Matthew Pearl. This does sound interesting because it's like someone is killing people based on the levels of hell in Dante's Inferno, but like reading the synopsis, it didn't sound as interesting as I thought it would, so this is gone. Then I have 4 maybes. So I have You by Zoran Drevka. So this does sound kind of interesting because it's like there were a bunch of people stuck in their cars overnight, and a bunch of them ended up dead, and no one knows why they died. but over time theories start to focus on an individual perpetrator and the traveller is born. It's like, that sounds kind of interesting. Nothing else? So it's a maybe. And I have The Leaping by Tom Fletcher. I thought this sounded really interesting because there's like an ancient evil waiting at someone's house, you know, they've just moved in. That's a great trope for horror movies, at least. The synopsis is not selling it for me. And I have Kill the Boy Band by Goldie Moldavsky. Yeah, it's about two fans kidnapping a member of the band they really like and stuff starts happening. I don't know, like, I want it to be good, but I don't think it'll be that good. So that's why it's a maybe. And the last maybe I have is The Hunted by Gabriel Bergmoser. This is about a random injured woman stumbling into a servo and cars are chasing her and there's a big standoff. When I picked it up, I remember being really excited about it. The synopsis isn't doing it for me and I'm pretty sure I only picked this up because it was Australian, but I'm not sure I'm actually interested anymore. So if you have read any of those four, let me know your thoughts. Should I read them? Should I just let them go? The rest of them I'm keeping, because of course I am. So first up we have Elizabeth is Missing by Emma Healy. This seems to be about a woman with dementia is convinced that her friend Elizabeth is missing. That just sounds interesting, and I do weirdly want to read more books about dementia just to like completely destroy my soul. But this sounds really interesting and it could be fun. Then I have what I think is the entire series of the Dr. Pym's Intermillennial Sleuth series by L.J.M. Owen. So I have Olmec Obituary, Mayan Mendacity, and Egyptian Enigma. So these just sound like really fun books because it's about an archaeologist and the author themselves is an archaeologist and they're Australian, so that's cool. It's also about a librarian and the author was also a librarian, so it's just hitting all the right notes for me. And I love the covers, like there's just something really fun about those covers. Then I have Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I'm not super keen to read it because again, like I said before, me and Christie, we're not buds, but I know this is the most popular, either the most popular or one of the most popular Christie books, so I'll give this a go. Then I have Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Sadawi. It is kind of just like a Frankenstein retelling-ish, but it's set in Iraq and a scavenger is collecting human body parts to stitch them together to create a corpse. The goal, apparently, was for the government to recognize the parts as people, but then a bunch of murders start happening and the corpse disappears and it's a Frankenstein monster thing. Like, stitching corpses together sounds cool. Then I have If You Find Me by Emily Murdoch. This one I didn't think I was going to keep, but then it's like our main character has lived in a camper van in the woods her whole life, and it's just been about, you know, surviving out in the wilderness, which is a thing I love, and then strangers come to their camp. It sounds interesting. Then I have Jacqueline Hyde by Annabeth Bonda Stone and Connor White. This is obviously a Jekyll and Hyde retelling, which I didn't super love the original, but I like the concept. So if we're sticking with the concept, that works. Then I have The Harvest Man by Alex Grecian. This is like the third or fourth book in a series, which I don't have any of the other books in the series, and I don't know if I need to read them before I read this, but this just sounded interesting. Yeah, so they call him the Harvest Man. He hides away in the attics of his victims, emerging at night to terrorize them. My biggest fear. Ooh, I love this trope. Wow, I really now want to go watch Paranormal Activity. You know when you see those things on YouTube where people have like a camera in their house and it films the whole time, and then while they're sleeping, the camera is like on, and you see someone just come out of their ceiling? Terrifying. So I'm very interested in this. I really hope I don't have to read the rest in the series. We have Sorry by Zoran Drevnek, which was the author of one of the books in the maybe pile. This one sounds way more interesting. So it's about this company that says I'm sorry to people. So, you know, you call up, be like, hey, I don't feel like saying this to someone, but I know it needs to be said. You do it for me. And so they do it, that kind of thing. And they never really anticipated that a serial killer would contact them and say, you know, I would like you to like do my penance for me. So that just sounds interesting. So then I have The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. I really love the TV show Hannibal. It's amazing. I love it. Ooh, so good. I've never actually read any of the books. I didn't know this wasn't the first one. I know people have read just this one and it's been fine. They didn't think it needed a series type thing. So I'm just gonna read this and we'll see how I go. I really want to read all the cannibal books. Something about cannibalism is just like the right amount of creepy. So if you know any cannibal books, let me know. Then I have The Island by C.L. Taylor. This I was umming and ahhing about if I should put it in my maybe pile or not. It doesn't seem like my type of thing, so it's like 7 days, 6 teenagers, 1 deadly secret. Who will escape the island? Like, that's just dramatic and I'm not a fan. But the thing that keeps me wanting to read it, someone on the island knows each of the group's worst fears and one by one they're becoming a reality. That sounds interesting. But this whole lies thing, not so much, but I think I am still interested on giving it a go. But the last 2 are a series, which is The Shakespeare Secret by J.L. Carroll and The Shakespeare Curse. So The Shakespeare Secret is the first one, and I love any Shakespearean type things. It's a good time for me. But this is about a serial killer that is killing people in the way that some people die in Shakespearean plays, so that sounds cool. But then there's also something about like an ancient relic, which I don't know about that. Sounds interesting enough, so I'm keeping these. Now to prettyify. Okay, so here are these shelves. So this top one is all of the horror books. Little skull chest at the top there. And then I had a lot of room here, so I put 2 of my skull jars there, along with a bunch of my crystals in the little shroom. Yes, these are a lot of my crystals. I feel like I desperately need to own more horror now, which, like, I really do. So if anyone wants to send me horror books, go for it. And then we have my thriller shelf. And then here is the rest of the thriller books. And I put my lovely lady figure candle up there with another crystal, another one of my skull jars, and a skull crystal. If you haven't noticed, I like skulls. Yes, 2 more shelves down. So there we have it, my horror and thriller shelves are now curated for maximum riz. But yeah, even though I didn't get rid of a lot of books, and I didn't put a lot of books on my maybe pile, there's so much room. If you have read any of the books that I put in my maybe pile, let me know if they're worth keeping or not. Just help me curate some books. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time when I'll be doing the queer shelf. Everyone send me good vibes because I'm stressing already. That video's coming. But thank you for watching this one. Bye.